Sean G, we locked in. Puffy's appeal is underway. Had to get a little cup of coffee there. How y'all doing today? Okay. Alexandra Shapiro, who was Puffy's attorney throughout his racketeering conspiracy RICO trial in Manhattan that began in May of 2025, that concluded in June of 2025, and a verdict came down on July the 2nd, 2025, and Puffy was found innocent. He was acquitted of the racketeering conspiracy, and he was acquitted of 2 counts of sex trafficking, but he was convicted by the jury on 2 counts of the Mann Act. Now, Alexandra Shapiro, who was on Puffy's legal team throughout the trial, as well as Jason Driscoll, who was also on Puffy's legal team throughout the trial, are going to be handling his appeal along with another gentleman by the name of Christopher D. Johnson. And I think there's 2 other appeals lawyers that Puffy has. And they have to submit their opening brief. Puffy has to submit his opening brief by December 23rd, 2025, which is a little over a month. Today is the 16th, I think. And then the Southern District of New York's brief is due February 20th, 2026. So, 60 days after Puffy files his brief, his opening brief, the government has 60 days to submit their brief, and then Puffy's lawyers, his appeal lawyers, can have a reply brief, right? 3 weeks after that, 20 days after that, due by March 13, 2026. And then they will start with oral arguments. They could be held as early as April of 2026. So that's what we got. Now, Alexandra Shapiro, throughout Puffy's trial, she was there exclusively, I believe. I don't know. I never met Alexandra Shapiro. I never met Puff. I never met any of the people on his legal team except brief encounters in the cafeteria and brief encounters in the hallway. I met Xavier Donaldson in the cafeteria. I met Nicole Westmoreland in the cafeteria. I bumped into Alexandra Shapiro in the cafeteria or hallway. I bumped into Jason Driscoll in the hallway. Who else? And I think that was about it. I will be interviewing Alexandra Shapiro on the podcast with Soul, and I will be interviewing Nicole Westmoreland on the podcast with Soul at some point. I'm going to try to interview all of them, as well as Jason Driscoll, as well as Jonathan Bach, Tenny, Mark, Xavier, Anna, all of them. But Alexandra Shapiro, she didn't cross-examine not one witness. She wasn't there for that. Alexandra Shapiro is a judge in disguise as a defense attorney. Alexandra Shapiro is a super lawyer. And me watching her every day, she was just there to dot the I's and cross the T's and keep a trailing record of what was being done right and what was being done wrong. She was always, whenever there was a sidebar called, Alexandra Shapiro went to the sidebar, even though she was not engaged in the cross-examination. In a sidebar, depending upon who calls the sidebar, if the witness is being cross-examined by the defense and the prosecution doesn't like the way the cross-examination is going, they could jump up and yell sidebar, and then the judge gets up, that prosecutor who called for the sidebar, along with the defense attorney who's doing the cross-examination, all three of them walk over to the side of the courtroom. They play this loud noise in the courtroom so nobody can hear. It's called white noise. And they go and discuss and try to get some type of understanding and resolution to the issue that was raised as to why the prosecution called the sidebar. Now, what I saw most times, Alexandra Shapiro would also go to the sidebar even though she was not involved in the cross-examination. And I think Alexandra Shapiro just went because she's a powerhouse, right? This is one of the most elite level appeals attorneys in the country, right? Alexandra Shapiro is one of the top appeal lawyers in the United States of America, and Puffy hired her to be on his team. And she, throughout the trial proceedings, it was amazing to watch her work in the courtroom and to read her letters and motions, man, was like reading poetry, man. She is a brilliant, brilliant writer. I don't know if she was writing those herself or somebody was writing them, or if she was writing the rough draft and her administrative assistant was typing it. I don't know the situation, but her ability, her way with words is elite level, amazing, and I always enjoyed reading her stuff. She is, like I say, she was a judge disguised as a defense attorney, because she was head and shoulders more adept than the judge in the case. The judge in Puffy's criminal case was a newbie. He's 2 years on the bench. Not to say he's not a smart guy. Columbia Law School, worked in private practice as a defense attorney, and then got appointed to being a district judge in the Southern District of New York. He clerked under Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So he's a sharp dude, but he was a puppet for the criminal trial. I don't think no critical decision that needed to be made was made by him. I think he was told what to do, and I think he was deliberately placed as a judge in that trial just for that reason, so that he could be moved and instructed and told what to do, because he was so new. And it was evident that Alexandra Shapiro is better than him. She was over him. He deferred to her. All of the assistant U.S. attorneys deferred to Alexandra Shapiro. All of the assistant U.S. attorneys deferred to all of Puffy's lawyers. They knew they were out of their league. They knew they were outmatched. Puffy's legal team was head and shoulders above the prosecution. It wasn't even close. In terms of the body language, in terms of the movement, the boldness within the courtroom, the self-confidence moving around the courtroom. If you were there, you saw who held forth and who was the bad motherfuckers in the room, and it was Puffy's lawyers. So Alexandra Shapiro was just there for that, to document and prepare the case for an appeal, just where we are now. Alexandra Shapiro asked for 2 or 3 mistrials throughout the case. She requested a Rule 29 acquittal, and she requested a Rule 33 new trial, which were all denied by the judge in Puffy's case. I don't even say his name anymore, because he doesn't have any respect for me, because he was a puppet. We would not be here. We should not be here if he was a stronger judge. If a stronger judge was presiding over that criminal trial, we wouldn't even be here at this point. But we don't care. We here, and we're going to take care of business. So Alexandra Shapiro is on the case. Jason Driscoll, who is a rising superstar, who rose to prominence in this trial. A young dude, met him in the hallway. He's brilliant, brilliant. And he, at the sentencing hearing, took the judge to school and took the prosecution to school. There was even a point during the trial when they were trying to get rid of juror number 6, where Jason Driscoll and Maureen Comey were going back and forth, along with Alexandra Shapiro, Jason Driscoll, Maureen Comey, the judge, Maureen Comey, Jason Driscoll. They were battling it out, and he came out on top. Jason Driscoll was quoting legal precedents in law that the judge didn't even know about, and he had to bring the judge up to speed, show him where online he can find this and what page. And Maureen Comey, didn't even, she says, well, let me take a look at it. Can we take a break and let me take a look? And Jason Driscoll, I call him Laptop Man. You understand? Because he made his presence felt, and he helped save Puffy's life too. So stay tuned. The appeal is going down. Sean G. Peace.